I recognized him instantly, by the way he walked, shoulders slumped, feet dragging as if he carried the weight of an entire lifetime on his back. I never thought I'd see the man who used to be my husband like this again, scavenging through torn bags and crushed cans just to survive. I had just stepped out of the bank with a folder tucked under my arm when I saw him leaning over a dumpster, sorting through scraps with dirty hands, dropping aluminum cans into an old sack. My heart froze. The whole world shrank down to that single street corner. There he was, malnourished, beard overgrown, white hair tangled, clothes stained and worn, and yet undeniably him. The man who once shared my home, my table, my dreams. I stood there on the sidewalk, unable to move. My mind flashed back to the day he left without a real explanation, only a short, cold letter, "It's for the best." That abandonment broke me for years. I had gone from anger to hate to a sadness that never fully left. And now life was bringing him back to me like this, reduced to a nobody on the street, ignored by everyone passing by. I felt ashamed of my own thoughts. A part of me wanted to cross the street, to hide, to avoid mixing my past with this misery. But something stronger than pride pushed me forward. I took a step, then another. The click of my heels made him look up. Our eyes met. For a moment, he recognized me. I saw the shock hit him like a memory he wished he could erase. His hands trembled. He tried to turn away, as if I were a ghost returning to collect a debt he couldn't pay. "Is that you?" I asked, my voice barely audible. He lowered his gaze, ashamed. "You shouldn't see me like this," he whispered. "Forget it. Just go." Before we continue, I just want to invite you to support the channel. Hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. It truly helps more than you can imagine. Okay, let's continue. I didn't walk away. I stepped closer, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. His shoes were torn, his fingers cracked from the cold, his eyes sunken from hunger. Nothing about him resembled the respected engineer he once was, the man who wore crisp suits and talked about construction projects with so much passion. "Why are you living like this?" I asked, my voice shaking. "After everything that happened, I need to know." He pressed his lips together and looked around nervously, as if afraid someone might be listening. Then he slowly shook his head. "You should never have seen me again," he murmured. "I did everything so you wouldn't have to carry this." I stepped even closer. I could smell the streets on him, sweat, dust, poverty. "With what?" I whispered. "What did you do, Thaddeus?" He lifted his eyes, filled with tears, and spoke the words that split my world in two. "It was to save you." My knees went weak. I grabbed his arm so he wouldn't fall. "Save me from what?" I begged. He tried to stay standing, but his body gave out. He collapsed into my arms, fainting like an old tree finally giving up. I screamed for help. A few people rushed over. Someone called an ambulance. While we waited, I held his head in my lap, just like I used to when we were young and he caught a fever. I never thought I'd hold him like this again. Broken, fragile. In the ambulance, the paramedic said he was severely dehydrated, anemic, and showing signs of long-term malnutrition. I could barely process the words. All I could hear was that sentence echoing in my skull. "It was to save you." At the hospital, they told me he had been seen sleeping in makeshift shelters, refusing help, carrying no ID. Hours later, he woke up, and I was still there. "Leave," he said immediately. "You don't have to worry about me. I don't belong to your life anymore." "You will always be a part of my story," I replied. "And I'm not going anywhere until you tell me the truth." He closed his eyes, battling something inside. Finally, with a trembling voice, he whispered, "I didn't lose everything because I made bad decisions. I lost everything because I obeyed." "Obeyed who?" I asked. He didn't answer. He turned his face toward the wall. That silence cut deeper than anything he could have said. I stayed beside him all night, not understanding the magnitude of what I was about to uncover. I thought about our marriage, the strange arguments, the sudden disappearance, the legal papers, the debts he left me with. Nothing ever made sense. At dawn, when he opened his eyes again, he looked at me with heartbreaking sadness. "Everything I lost so you could stay alive," he said. "And even then, you hated me." A knot formed in my throat. "I didn't know," I whispered. "I thought you betrayed me." A single tear rolled down his cheek. "That's what I needed you to believe." In that moment, I realized my entire resentment had been built on a carefully constructed lie, and his misery wasn't random. It was a sacrifice, a hidden one. I didn't yet know who was behind it or what danger had once surrounded me. But something inside me burned with the need to find out. I took his hand softly. "Rest," I told him. "This time, you're not alone." As he drifted back to sleep under the harsh hospital lights, I understood something clearly. Seeing him in that alley, surrounded by trash and cans, wasn't a coincidence. It was the beginning of a truth capable of destroying lives and changing mine forever. He slept most of the next day, exhausted from years of suffering. I stayed by his side, unsure why, but certain that if I left, something important would disappear into the shadows again. As I watched him struggle to breathe, memories flooded back, memories I hadn't visited in years. I had met him at 28, a man full of plans, strong hands, big dreams. 4 years, he gave me the life he promised. We weren't rich, but we were happy in our own way. Our marriage wasn't perfect. Arguments, silences, small wounds. But I never expected the end to come the way it did. Cold, sudden, wordless. One morning, he simply didn't come home. 2 days passed. No news. I went to the police, the hospitals, his office. No one knew anything. On the 3rd day, a lawyer arrived with a sealed envelope, and inside was a short letter written in his handwriting. "Forgive me. It's for the best. Don't look for me." That single letter shattered my world from the inside out. For weeks, I called him nonstop. I sent messages. I begged for answers. His number was disconnected. No one knew where he was. And then, slowly, the blows began landing one after another. Debts I never knew existed. Bank accounts drained. Properties seized. Legal notices arriving like poison falling from the sky. In less than 6 months, I lost everything. My husband, my stability, my home. I was forced to move into a small rented room and start over at 47. People looked at me with pity or suspicion. Some even whispered that I must have done something to drive him away. I let them believe whatever they wanted. Truthfully, I didn't even understand it myself. 4 years, I hated him. I hated him for vanishing without a word, for leaving me buried under shame, debt, and unanswered questions. I hated him for turning our life into a ghost story. But that night, sitting next to his hospital bed, that hatred finally cracked. When he woke up again, I asked the nurses to leave. I closed the door and faced him directly. Thaddeus looked exhausted, not just tired, but hollowed out by something darker than poverty. "Tell me everything," I said. "No more lies. Not now." He stayed silent for a long moment, breathing heavily. Then he finally spoke. "The day I disappeared," he whispered, "I was supposed to die." My heart dropped. "What are you talking about?" "Because that's what I was ordered to do," he said. "And I chose something else." I stared at him, confused. "Ordered by who?" He swallowed hard. "Dangerous people. Verit. Very dangerous people." I could feel the truth in his voice, not the kind that's loud, but the kind that sits heavy in the air. I was accused of a fraud I didn't commit, he continued. A project where I was forced to sign things. When I tried to report it, they showed me fake evidence, paid witnesses, and a photo of you walking out of our building. A cold shiver spread through me. They told me if I spoke or tried to clear my name, you would pay the price. And that's why you ran? I whispered. I didn't run, he said. I erased myself. He told me he took the blame for crimes he never committed. Signed everything. Gave up our assets. Let every account be emptied. Also the story of his downfall looked real. So the men threatening us would leave me alone. You had to hate me, he said quietly. It was the only way to keep you from searching for me. They needed proof that the blackmail worked. Tears burned down my face. All these years, everything I went through was to protect me? To save your life, he replied. I covered my mouth to keep from breaking apart. Why didn't you ever come back? His voice cracked. Because they never stopped watching. Every time I tried to get close, someone would remind me you were alive only because I stayed gone. His misery suddenly made sense. Not a punishment, but an order. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked the hospital corridors like a ghost, replaying my entire life through this new lens of fear, threats, and silent sacrifices. By morning, something inside me had changed. When I returned to his room, I said, I can't unknow this. I'm not who I used to be. I won't stay quiet anymore. Don't dig up the past, he warned. The past kills. So does silence, I said. And I've been silent too long. He stared at me with a fear I'd never seen from him. Not fear for himself, but for me. You have no idea who you're dealing with, he murmured. And you have no idea how many years of my life your silence stole, I replied. That afternoon, strangers began appearing around the hospital. Men who didn't look like visitors. Men who asked for non-existent patient rooms. Men who watched without blinking. Thaddeus's hand tightened around mine. It's starting, he whispered. I met his gaze without flinching. Then the ending starts now too. I wasn't just his ex-wife anymore. I was now a piece on a board I hadn't even known existed. And I refused to back down. That night, while he slept, I sat alone in the waiting room, replaying every memory, the debts, the shame, the whispers behind my back. All of it suddenly made sense. I had lived inside a scripted tragedy, and I was the only one who didn't know it. By dawn, I returned to him. He opened his eyes slowly. I'm still here, I told him. Relief washed over his face. I want names, I said. Understanding isn't enough anymore. I need to know who destroyed you. He closed his eyes. Some names, he whispered, are spoken only once, and then they cost you your life. My life was already in danger, I said. You just didn't tell me. He took a deep breath. It all started with a major public works project, millions of dollars. I was just the technical lead. But the contracts were traps, fake companies, inflated budgets, money being siphoned off. When I tried to report it, the threats began. He tried to stand but was overcome by coughing. A nurse rushed in. While she helped him, I noticed a man watching us from the hallway. When our eyes met, he turned and walked away. Fear plunged straight back into my stomach. That afternoon, a doctor pulled me aside. Be careful, he whispered. 3 men asked about him today. They didn't seem like family. My knees nearly buckled. I returned to Thaddeus with a single decision in my heart. No more half-truths, I said. Tell me everything. Now. He looked pained. There's something I never told you, he said. The night I disappeared, I buried a box under the old workshop. Inside are the original documents, everything that proves the embezzlement. My breath caught. Why didn't you use them? Because you would have died, he whispered. But now it may not matter anymore. I stared at him, realizing that his silence had protected more than just me. It had protected an entire web of corruption that no one else even knew existed. I'm getting that box, I said. No, he insisted. It's too dangerous. It's more dangerous to wait, I answered. I won't let you sacrifice yourself again. He finally nodded. In the back of the shop, behind a false shelf, everything is there. The next morning, I left the hospital. My heart was a fist in my chest as I took a taxi to the abandoned workshop on the south side. The place smelled of dust and old oil. I found the shelf, moved the boxes, ran my fingers along the wall until I felt an uneven edge. I pried it open with a rusted tool. My hands shook as I uncovered the metal box buried beneath. It was heavy. Inside were sealed folders, USB drives, real contracts, photos, recordings, enough evidence to bring down more than one powerful man. A wave of terror and determination washed over me. It wasn't enough to suspect the truth. Now I was holding it in my hands. When I stepped out of the workshop, I noticed a car half a block away start its engine the second I appeared. I didn't look back. I walked straight toward a crowded corner and slipped into a store, waiting, watching. The car circled once, twice, then vanished. The game was no longer a secret. I went back to the hospital with the metal box hidden inside an ordinary shopping bag. Thaddeus was awake. One look at my face, and he knew. I said nothing, just nodded. They're not chasing just you and me anymore, he murmured. They're chasing the truth. Let them try, I said. This time, I'm not hiding. At that moment, I crossed an invisible line. I wasn't the woman who once cried after finding her ex-husband collecting cans. I was now the keeper of a truth powerful enough to bring down empires. When I returned to the hospital room, I held the box to my chest like something alive. Every step felt heavy, not just from fear, but from everything that box represented. Decades of lies. Injustice. A life ruined without me ever understanding why. Thaddeus looked at me as if I had just returned from war. I found it, I whispered, sliding the bag beneath the bed. His eyes filled with tears. There's no turning back, he said. There never was. We sat together for hours before opening the box. When I finally did, my hands trembled. Inside were folders organized by year and date, photos, maps, payments, signatures, construction sites, and documents with my name forged across them. Debt accounts I never opened, companies I never heard of, contracts tying me to impossible sums, designed so that if an investigation ever occurred, I would look like the guilty one. My vision blurred. All these years of eviction notices, lost savings, humiliation, hunger, cleaning houses in my 50s. I had blamed fate. I had blamed him. But it wasn't abandonment. It was sacrifice. Why didn't you warn me? I choked out. Even if they killed me, at least I would have died knowing the truth. No, he said, voice breaking. I still had one thing to bargain with. Your life. My tears fell onto the papers. So my misery was part of their theater? Yes, he whispered, to make it look like we were utterly destroyed, so no one would look deeper. My years of suffering had not been random. I had been carefully pushed to the edge so the guilt could fall on him, and I would fall with him. I stumbled into the hallway, sat alone, stared at my worn hands, hands aged by work I never understood I had been forced into. Someone had decided I needed to fall, to protect a circle of criminals. That night, unable to sleep, I revisited the documents in a small room. Names tied to corporations, politicians, respectable men. A massive corruption network had used me as its shield. They destroyed his life. And mine. At dawn, I told Thaddeus, I know what I lost. Now tell me who stole it. If we go through with this, he warned softly, there will be no forgiveness. Only blood in the courts. I don't want revenge, I said. I want justice, with full names. That kind of justice kills slowly, he whispered. I died slowly for years, I replied. Now it's their turn. From that day, I was no longer a broken woman. I began calling banks, courts, old partners, people who once slammed doors in my face. Now they listened. The documents spoke louder than I ever could. But Thaddeus's condition worsened, and time was running out. One evening, he squeezed my hand. If I don't live to see them fall, promise me you won't stop. I promise, I cried. This time, no one will silence us. But the enemy was already moving. Silent calls, dark cars, strange faces, warnings wrapped in politeness. I wasn't the same frightened woman anymore. Now I knew why they destroyed me. And once a woman understands why she fell, she becomes far more dangerous. Late one night, I pushed him gently. There's more, Thaddeus. I can see it in your eyes. Tell me everything. For the first time, I saw real fear in him. That is the one thing I should never tell you, he said. Because once you know, there will be no way back. There's been no way back since I saw you collecting cans, I said. Speak. His voice trembled. If I say the names, they will kill you. A cold shock ran through me. Just like that. I whispered. Just like that. These weren't just corrupt businessmen. They were officials, judges, men who erased files, and people. That was why he fell. Not for money, but for my life. And I hated you, I whispered. For years. I buried you in my heart. That hatred kept you alive, he said quietly. I covered my face. Every memory was being rewritten, painfully, violently, into an act of twisted love. Tell me about them, I insisted, even without names. Then he told me about companies, false bids, laundered millions, silenced witnesses, rigged elections, killed engineers. A machine of corruption. I left the hospital with real fear in my bones. Not emotional fear, but physical terror. Yet I didn't stop. With the help of a veteran journalist, I began pulling strings. He saw one document and went pale. This is dynamite, he whispered. That night, the first attack came. His office was ransacked. A note left behind. We only warn once. I stored every file in multiple secret locations. Encrypted. Separated. Untouchable. A young district attorney agreed to review them in secret. This is a 20-year network, he said gravely. They destroyed my life to protect it, I replied. You realize this will put you in danger, he warned. They already did, I said. I just didn't know. Soon after, my house was broken into. Nothing valuable taken, except my wedding album. They wanted me to know. We can touch whatever you love. Fear shook me, but I didn't break. They had already broken me once. I survived. That night, I held Thaddeus tightly. They'll attack where it hurts, he whispered. They already did, I said. But I'm not the same woman. Days later, the blow came, the one that almost destroyed us completely. The fever hit him like a storm, high, relentless, unforgiving. By evening, his lungs were failing. They rushed him to intensive care, and the doctor spoke with a coldness I already knew too well. If he makes it through the next 48 hours, he'll have a chance. I spent the entire night outside the ICU, staring at a blank white wall, unable to breathe, unable to think. Maybe he would never live to see the guilty fall. Maybe his sacrifice would remain unfinished. The guilt crushed my chest like an iron weight. Just before sunrise, the district attorney called. "We're conducting the first raids today." My heart stopped. Already. If we wait longer, they'll erase everything. They've already started. The next hours were a crawling nightmare. Fragmented updates, rushed calls, coordinated raids, offices stormed, servers seized, respected businessmen summoned without warning. By mid-afternoon, the journalist sent me a single text. "This is going to explode." And then it did. The first public arrests came that same night: a consortium president, a fugitive manager, a former official handed over by his own political party. The whole country started to whisper. But the enemy fought back. As I left the hospital, a man tried to shove me into the street, into the path of a speeding car. An orderly stumbled at the perfect second, crashing into me and sending me backward. The car brushed past my legs. 1 inch, 1 second, and I would have been gone. That night, I sat beside Thaddeus's unconscious body and spoke as if he could hear me. "They can't hide anymore," I whispered. "Everything is starting to fall apart. Don't give up now." A single tear slid down my face. At dawn, he opened his eyes. "Are they still alive?" he murmured. "Very alive," I said. "And very nervous." He tried to smile. "Then it was worth it." I gripped his hand. "It's not over." 2 days later, the DA called me in urgently. "We have enough evidence to go to trial," he said. "Names, money trails, recordings, everything, including the highest ones." For a moment, his silence filled the room. "So, it's now or never?" I asked. "Exactly." When I walked out of his office, I knew the story that began in a pile of trash bags had reached the point of no return. We were no longer just two victims. We were the crack splintering an entire empire. That night, I told Thaddeus. "They're going to fall," I whispered. "All of them." He closed his eyes with a peace I had never seen on his face. "Then I can leave in peace when my time comes." "Don't say that," I begged. "Someone has to pay for the silences of the righteous," he whispered. And I finally understood. The file had not only rewritten a country's history. It had changed the destiny of a man who chose to lose everything so I could keep breathing. For the first time, his truth was about to be written in ink no one could erase. The first major name hit the news early Tuesday morning. I was sitting beside his bed when the anchor said it aloud, an admired businessman now in handcuffs, covering his face with a trembling hand. A shiver ran through me. It wasn't joy. It was vertigo. "It's happening," I whispered. Thaddeus opened his eyes. "Barely." "I never thought I'd live to see this," he breathed. That same day, 2 more arrests. Raids everywhere. Servers taken. Offices sealed. The network was collapsing in front of the entire country. But the collapse wasn't clean. Anonymous phone calls to the hospital. Strangers lingering too long at the doors. A note slipped under his wheelchair. "This isn't over." 2 days later, the DA summoned me again. "We need your formal testimony," he said. "Not as a witness, as the custodian of the documents." A crushing weight fell over me. "Is it safe?" I asked. "Nothing is safe at this point. But without your testimony, some of them will try to walk free." I agreed. The day I arrived at the courthouse, the press were everywhere. Every gaze cut through me like glass. A 67-year-old woman who had been invisible for most of her life, was now the key to a case shaking half the nation. Inside sat the men whose signatures had destroyed lives, some with perfect suits, others with dignity already broken. I recognized two of the names Thaddeus whispered to me in the hospital. My hands trembled, but I didn't stop. The DA listed dates, numbers, contracts. Then he called me. "Do you recognize these documents?" "Yes," I said. "For years, I believed they were the reason I lost everything. Now I know they were the mechanism of your crimes." A murmur rippled through the room. "Explain how they came into your possession." I took a deep breath and told everything. The workshop, the buried box, the confession, the evidence, the threats, the pursuit. I left nothing out. Every word was another stone falling on men who had treated lives like disposable pieces. One of them jumped up, pointing at me. "She's lying. Manipulated by a criminal." The judge slammed his gavel. "That woman is the reason we are here today," he said coldly. "And you men are the reason she lived marked by ruin." My knees buckled. The DA caught my arm. By the end of the hearing, the truth was undeniable. Arrests were ordered. Some begged for deals. Others claimed to be victims. Two even asked for protection. The castle of power was collapsing from the inside. I returned to the hospital overflowing with emotion. "Did they fall?" Thaddeus whispered. "Yes," I cried. "They've begun to fall." He closed his eyes with a soft, painful peace. "Then I can rest." "Don't you dare," I said, squeezing his hand. "The most important thing is still missing." "What's missing?" "Clearing your name." 3 days later, the final blow came. A high-ranking official, untouchable for decades, was arrested trying to flee with fake documents. On his laptop, they found the blueprint of everything: the illegal operations, the orders, and Thaddeus's name as the designated scapegoat. The DA came to the hospital in person. "Mr. Thaddeus," he said, "you are officially exonerated. Every charge is removed." Thaddeus stared at him, unable to process the words. "You were the victim of criminal extortion," the DA added quietly. "And your sacrifice exposed one of the largest corruption networks in the country." Thaddeus began to cry. I held him carefully. "We did it," I whispered. "After all these years, we did it. But justice always comes with a price." That night, his condition collapsed without warning. Internal bleeding. Alarms. Doctors running. I stood outside the emergency room, hands pressed to my heart, praying to a God I hadn't spoken to in years. Hours passed. When the doctor finally approached, his face told me everything. We did all we could. His body was too weak. My world cracked open. I walked into the room on unsteady legs. He lay there, eyes closed, machines beeping softly. I took his hand. "You carried the truth until the end," I whispered. "And now the world knows." He opened his eyes one last time, full of a love I would remember forever. "It was worth it," he breathed. "You're alive. They won't hate you because of me anymore." A single tear slipped down his cheek. "I never hated you," I whispered, a lie to ease his leaving. He died with a faint smile. His death barely made the news, overshadowed by the national scandal. But to me, it was an earthquake. I mourned him quietly. No cameras, no speeches. Just me, the truth, and the weight of the stolen years. Days later, after I buried him, a prosecutor approached me. "There will be reparations," he said. "A public apology." "That won't give him back the years he lost," I replied. "But maybe it will save someone else." That night, I returned to my silent house. Justice had arrived. The guilty were jailed or running. The truth filled the newspapers. But the man whose love sustained that truth was gone. And for the first time, the silence in my house wasn't a threat. It was simply absence.